Thank you very much for organising this talk, and for those of you attending and those of attending online. My background is in natural language processing, and I will present some work today that I'm doing together with PhD students here at PhD students of mine who are based here at the Turing, and also other colleagues at the Turing, and I'm hoping I can highlight also areas where there is potential for further collaboration with more people. So we're interested in leveraging the large amounts of online data that we produce, and these include text, so social media posts, but also multimodal data such as images, video and location information. And we're interested also in incorporating data from other devices such as mobile phones, so usage about application usage and sensor information such as accelerometer data that can give us various behavioral cues. And it's the right time for this because we are increasingly producing a lot of such data, so each of us can be seen as a data factory emitting different digital trails. So we want to leverage these digital trails to understand basically better how people feel about important issues. So opinions and attitudes and towards important issues. So things like people post about immigration or economy or taxes or so different topics, attitudes to different policies, and also attitudes to information posted online. So this actually links to what Tomas was discussing in terms of real information and the sort of the post-fact reality that we're experiencing right now, and so understanding how people react to these to various post-facts or quasi-facts. We're also interested in understanding well-being and people's moods based on this combination of different digital trails, so differential digital trails, whether they are text they leave on social media, or the way they use their phone, or the way they move about. And what are the main tools that we use for this? So given that my background is natural language processing is the main avenue that I'm approaching this together with other machine learning methodology. So I'm generally interested in challenging problems involving human language and its interaction with multimodal and heterogeneous data. and indeed such problems can drive methodological innovation within natural language processing and machine learning. So as you know, this is a varied audience, I wanted to sort of put a little bit of a slide of where things fit in, so where natural language processing sits in relation to data science, data analysis, machine learning, text mining. So all these are terms that I'm sure all of you have your own view about. In fact, when we had the open day in July, which I guess some of you attended, one of the things we were discussing was what data science means for each of us. So you have your sort of inner circle of data mining, which utilizes machine learning algorithms with a focus on your data. You have data analytics, where you utilize some of data mining, but you also can do aggregates and visualizations that are not necessarily based on machine learning. Then you have your incorporation of background knowledge, and then you have the whole of data science that encompasses these, but also involves things like designing your data collection as well. So it's sort of the whole life cycle of your of experiment design and interpretation would be data science. So, so natural language processing actually sits somewhere here. So it definitely has overlaps with machine learning, but also we have issues of data transformation, which are not which are very important within natural language processing, the incorporation of background knowledge, and also how you construct your collection, your data collection. So, in the words of Juraski and Martin, so natural language processing is the field concerned with getting computers to perform useful tasks involving human language. And then you have text mining, was actually a subfield of natural language processing, which is more concerned with new knowledge discovery from text. But you may hear them being used interchangeably. So this is where I see NLP sitting within sort of the general scope of data science. And these days, natural language processing is very much machine learning based and statistical, and most recent papers involve deep learning. But NLP is not just deep learning. So to quote Chris Manning, our field is the domain science of language technology. It's not just about the best machine learning method. So the central issue remain the domain problems. So we're interested in very much the interesting problems that drive the field. So with that intro, I'd like to talk more about how we're combining heterogeneous online data to sense well-being. So that would be the first part that I discuss. So our motivation here is to use user-generated content from social media and mobile phones to develop automated methods for measuring individual indicators of mental health. To give you a little bit of background, and so this is basically from the poster we used at NYU to help us recruit participants, because as you can probably imagine, even though we all produce these digital trails, actually collecting them is more challenging than you'd actually think. So the background here is that there are macro indicators of well-being, mental well-being and mental health, and usually they are based on some kind of statistical proxy, so whether that's sort of poverty indicators that will also correlate with poor mental health and poor well-being. And you have things as well, such as macro indicators that are stemming from aggregates of social media analysis on a large scale. And there's also more personal indicators. So these are people filling in forms, filling in psychology tests. So there's essentially self-reporting, and then there's also experiential sampling. And this is more using devices such as mobile phones to prompt users to give more regular input about how they're feeling at different moments. So what we're trying to do is actually leveraging, so looking at the individual, but over a long period of time, and collating different kinds of data while having kind of a minimal intervention towards the individual. So we're not constantly prompting them to tell us how they're feeling at different points. So the novelty here is the combination of sensor and phone usage data with the textual data for longitudinal predictions. And we've created a novel data set of heterogeneous data, and I'm hoping that with the help of James and other people here at the Institute, we can actually help release this, so this can be used by other people to do research as well. And we're also, we've also calibrated these are automated mood predictors against established psychological scales, which is something that not many of the other studies have done. So this I think I mentioned a little bit before, giving the background on mental well-being indicators. So other areas related to this work is mobile-based studies on mental health. So some of you will be aware of the work by Mirko Mussolesi and his students and colleagues. So there they show that there is a correlation between mobility patterns based on GPS and depression. However, these text and other sources are not exploited in this context, and there's a coarser temporal granularity. And there's also work by colleagues at Dartmouth College, and they correlate phone sensor data and daily probs for students with GPA scores. So these are student performance at the end of terms. And again, you don't have integration of textual data here, and you have rather coarse temporal granularity. And there's also been some work on using multitask and multi-kernel approaches for predicting students' well-being using survey mobility and smartphone data. But again, these have relied a lot on the survey data, and which requires a lot of manual effort from users, which is not what we actually want here. And on the other side, there's multimodal sentiment, where you're trying to combine synchronous audio, visual and linguistic data to try and predict affect dimensions. So basically how people are feeling. But in this case, you don't really have any kinds of asynchronous data. So it's all coming from the same stream, but in different modalities. And there's no missing data as well. And this can be distinguished into early fusion approaches and late fusion approaches. So basically how you combine features from the different modalities, whether you combine these at a model level or you treat them all in the same way. So So in collecting this heterogeneous user-generated content, there's various issues involved, such as there being various ethical constraints. There is no single API for collecting all this data. There's barriers from commercial interest. So there were various challenges to be overcome. Our requirements were that we wanted to use longitudinal data for the same user cohort. We wanted this to be obtained in a natural way, so things that by things that people do anyway. So using smartphones and online data they produce anyway. Use an established measure of well-being as a target, and have a real-world scenario. And the real-world scenario means having heterogeneous, asynchronous, and missing data to deal with as well. So we have. I won't go into the hurdles of actually collecting this data set, but I'm happy to discuss this with you. But I'm happy to say that we have over 111,000 posts, which are in different languages, but mostly in English. They come from Facebook status, Facebook messages, Twitter, SMS. And then there's also non-textual data, which is location information, Wi-Fi and GPS. We have mobile phone usage in terms of number and duration of calls, use of different applications, and sensor data from the phones, mainly accelerometer and light sensor data. And then our target are these mood questionnaires, which are our alignment to these established psychological scales, and these were collected on a daily basis. So we're not relying on those in terms of making the predictions, they are the target values for us. And this is a little bit what the data looks like in terms of the sort of the mobile phone data. So there's various issues on how you aggregate them, and we have 42 gigabytes of data in this kind of format. So I wanted to talk more about the challenges in the data analysis. So we have a lot of missing data, and this can be because the mobile phone switched off, we didn't have signal, so on. It's the reality we have to work with. So how to tackle missing data is an important issue here. We have data at very different levels of temporal granularity. So how you align these is very important. It's a decision that influences obviously your analysis and what you get out of this. So especially when we're talking about the sensor data and how you decide to aggregate these in different time windows. The longitudinal models for the linguistic data can be very sparse. So again, what are the appropriate aggregates, especially when you want to align them with things like sensor data that are very fine-grained and very redundant. And so how you create representations of these data is quite a challenge. And so here, where part of this will also influence the choice of algorithm, but a lot of this is also in terms of the pre-processing that other people have also mentioned. So whether you call that pre-processing or data wrangling, actually it's quite an important problem, and not one to be dismissed as, well, it's just we do a little bit of that, and the important thing is the algorithm. So here in this task, we have your input from the different textual sources and the mobile phones. Your target is to predict your mood score, and we have 3 different possible predictions, and these are considered as separate targets. I think, how am I doing for time? 5 minutes. Okay. So I would like to point you actually to our paper more to see the details of this. So I think the main thing so these are our recent paper with Adam is the first author. So he's here, and we're very happy to talk to people about the challenges of this. So we followed mainly 2 approaches to this. One is a vanilla approach where we put all the features together, and another one where we try to have a different way of modeling the 3 modalities, but learning the parameters for these at the same time. And that was the latter one is using multi-kernel learning, and whereas the vanilla approach performed better. What you see is actually, so the vanilla approach was our random forest, and it's red, and you can see it's heavily making use of the textual features, but the multi-kernel learning has a more distributed use of the features. So that is actually probably is quite important in moving forward in the fact that you're actually making better use of the different modalities rather than relying only on one. But also the fact that the textual data was so important also demonstrates that the fact that other approaches haven't been incorporating the textual data for the purpose of understanding well-being is obviously an omission. So the challenges and opportunities for collaboration. So we want to have better use of temporal granularity and use of different kernels in the multi-kernel learning. We want to look at better ways of doing user modeling, better ways of incorporating the semantics of locations, which at the moment we only incorporate as a ranking of the location that is most visited by our different users. We want to be able to address the problem of missing data in one source. So currently we're losing actually all the instances that have missing data beyond a window of 6 hours. So other ways of ideas for combinations of longitudinal heterogeneous data. Plenty of tasks that can stem from this data set. Also ways of transforming the data set so that we can share it with people, so people don't get upset if so there aren't any privacy issues are addressed appropriately. And we do have an award from the Lloyd's Register Foundation to continue work in this area. So we're very happy to talk to people about this. So then I will briefly talk about our opinion mining in social media conversations. What is opinion mining? So opinion mining is basically identifying attitudes towards different things. So it all started with product reviews, when people wanted to know how people are rating a particular product, whether that was a movie or a camera, and so on. And so there's a lot of research in this area, particular on reviews of different types and corpora for reviews. But also it has come to encompass things like subjectivity, so distinguishing between subjective and objective statements, distinguishing between sentiment as being positive, negative or neutral, and usually on a particular post, so that can be a sentence or a tweet. It can also be targeted to individual topics or entities within this post. And apart from using text, people are coming to use multimodal data, as I mentioned before, so things like images and video. And it also encompasses bias, so the detection of bias and the detection of stance. So stance is definitely targeted, and usually it's an aggregate as well. So we have come a long way in sort of the world of sentiment analysis. So what I'll mention briefly is the latest stuff on stance classification in tweets and conversation threads. So these, the challenges that are very much hot topics now in this area is exploiting the conversation threads and long-range dependencies and inference between posts. So not just doing it on a tweet or post level, but understanding, for example, in a conversation thread, what have other people said before, and how does that influence the current, the sentiment labeled of the current post. So target specific sentiment where you make better use of the context and recognizing more subtle aspects such as bias and incorporating multimodal content into all this. Rob Proctor mentioned briefly the other day, well, not so briefly, I will mention it briefly, our work in the theme project, where we look at stance and veracity in social media, and Elena, who's one of the students here, is working on this. So here you have an example rumor conversation thread where the first post generates a rumor and the rest is conversation around the rumor, and you want to understand how each of these posts are positioned towards the initial source tweet which generates the rumor, and basically how each of these are influenced by by the discussion that has come previously. And the challenge here is well, how do you actually model these conversation threads? So you could give them a linear structure where you consider, that you have chronologically one post replying to the next, form a linear sequence, or you could see it as a more complicated tree structure. And we have a paper again. At the moment, this paper is considering conditional random fields, both linear and tree structures, and we're working with Elena on using LSTMs, long short-term memory networks. And there's also a task we have this year, it's called Rumor Eval. So if people are interested in participating in this, there's the link. So finally, what the step ahead is basically incorporating the multimodal content in these tasks. And thank you very much all for listening. These are the team, and some of us are based here, so we'd be very happy to collaborate with people. Thank you.